I never viewed Jiva as a career, right? It was not a career choice or a profession choice or a work choice. We believe deeply in the value that the Vedic Indian sciences, arts, and culture can give to the world and make it a better place. And that value system is very critical to an organization like Jiva. Oh, very good question. And I think a lot of the times organizations fail not because they did not have a great model or they did not have a good commercial model. There is this book called The Wealth of Nations. And when I was studying it, I read the purpose of this treatise is to maximize the wealth of nations. There, an economic treatise, a treatise on economic management, talks about the purpose saying, Sukhasya moolam dharma, dharmasya moolam artha, arthasya moolam rajyam. Our food cycle is completely compromised with preservatives, chemicals, additives. 3 billion US dollars is what is the cost of employee sick leave in the world.
He said, I've seen people on the ventilator or ICUs willing to pay crores just to get 1 day life. Hi, MS. Welcome to the Incredible Workplace podcast. And I'm here with Jiva Gram. And looking at the image, this is really an extraordinary place that you built. So we'll start this podcast from there itself. And thank you. And when we were working on a little bit the research on what this Jiva is all about and Jiva Gram is all about, the whole concept about it, we understood that it is something that is built by your family in past, and it has come from a clinic that you built in a garage and an Ayurvedic at your first floor. And when this was all happening, I'm sure you're part of the conversations that were happening at that point in time. What was that conversation that was happening at the dinner table with your family?
That's a very interesting question. Usually, this is not the question I get, so but a very apt question. So Jiva started more of like a mission mode organization, right? In the sense that the Pagalpan was about how do you revive the Vedic Indian sciences, arts, and culture, but do it in a modern context. And the intent was to create a healthy, happy, peaceful, and a harmonious society. So the dinner conversations invariably, no matter what was cooked, whether it was tasty or not, whether it was to our liking or not, but one topic that was common at all dinner conversations was Jiva.
Wow.
So that, sort of ingraining of the values, the vision, the sort of the mission of creating a positive societal impact and bringing about change. And obviously, got a lot of exposure to the beautiful wisdom in the Bharatiya Indian sciences, the arts, the culture, and the kind of impact it can have. So, growing up, that was normal conversation at every meal.
Wow, that's interesting. And I think when you look at the concept that you guys are trying to build, and I think there's a great market today, considering the fact that people wants to experience something that is more Indian, more ancient than something that is more Western. So I'm sure this is a concept, but I'm also aware that it would have not been easier for you guys to build it, because when you start a concept like that, mainly we get a lot of pushback. So we'll come to that. But let me ask you, because you, as a new generation that is managing the whole setup that has been built by your family, and you joined Jiva in 2007, have ever come any thought to your mind that you don't want to do this and you want to do something else?
Um, well, if you are talking strictly as a career or a profession, I never viewed Jiva as a career, right? It was not a career choice or a profession choice or a work choice. It is more of a life choice. It's a life path. And which is why I said earlier, this is not the usual business organization. It is a organization, it is an institution that is working with a mission behind it. So the choice was not a traditional career choice. It is more of a life choice, in the sense that we believe deeply in the value that the Vedic Indian sciences, arts, and culture can give to the world and make it a better place. And given that, how do we kind of create a constructive model which is able to deliver that value in the society? So, growing up, there was always this air and the aura and the brainstorming and sort of creating all these sort of visualizations of what should be done so that positive change can be impacted at a larger scale. And it kind of became, how can I make myself useful? How can I make myself a small contributor in that larger journey towards creating a positive change?
Yeah. And one thing that mostly when you are already son of the family, right, and you have established business, the concept is very clear that the son will get the highest position in the organization. Did you also got the highest position in the organization when you joined, or you actually went up in the ladder learning the whole concept, how it goes?
Not at all. See, there is a distinction in how do you get to head an organization, right? Or how do you get to lead an organization? And what we deeply believe is skill can be something which can be taught, right? You cannot instill a value system. And that value system is very critical to an organization like Jiva. Because when we are trying to impact a positive change, when we are trying to create that constructive ecosystem, we are not merely creating a business model. We are not merely creating a corporate structure that works within the frameworks of a P&L and a balance sheet. The larger question is, why are we doing what we are doing? So when I started off as a regular executive. I know I started with the purchase department of the factory. Wow. And on day one, I remember there was a person called Zainab who was working in that department, and we figured out some things together. So day one, I remember very clearly, it was the 30th of September 2007, and it was a Sunday. So befitting to that kind of the passion with which we were wanting to build the organization, Sundays or Mondays didn't matter as much. So starting from there, to manufacturing, to ingredients, to exporting, to documentation, regulation, and then telemedicine, then clinics, then the Jivagram, the product division, and then the rest of the organization. So rightfully so, I think it gives a very wide exposure to what goes into making the organization work. And it also instills a great deal of gratitude and appreciation for people working at every level of the organization and the hard work they put in.
I'm liking Jiva more because normally what you hear and we have seen is that when you have a family member, normally then they don't go through this chain of the learning. And that's really unique, I must say. Although we expect people to go through the same path, but there are very few organizations that really do that. Mostly the son and daughter of the family comes and just take the highest share. And then they learn, of course, but not necessarily going from a very, very smaller level. And I think you started from purchase, a great example of that. And you spoke about values, right? So Jiva is known for the Ayurveda and the change that you are bringing in the health organization system that we have in India. But at the same time, when we talk about values, it's not only for the customers that comes and take the services here. It's also about the employees of the organization. And of course, Jiva is also one of the incredible workplace certified organization. How you guys are making sure that the values that Jiva believes in is cascading down to everybody in the organization?
Oh, very good question. And I think a lot of the times organizations fail not because they did not have a great model or they did not have a good commercial model. They fail in the long term because they failed to inculcate the right values framework. And two, percolate it down into the rest of the organization so as to it becomes the organizational DNA or the organizational memory, so to say. At Jiva, like I said, the intention is very clear. And that intention comes also from the Vedic wisdom. So when I was in college, I obviously, I'm a student of management and business. There is this book called The Wealth of Nations. And when I was studying it, I read the purpose of this treatise is to maximize the wealth of nations. And then, contrary to that, when I also read the Chanakya Sutra, there an economic treatise, a treatise on economic management, talks about the purpose saying, Sukhasya moolam dharma, dharmasya moolam artha, arthasya moolam rajyam. So suddenly that stark difference I observed of how very differently positioned the both systems are. One is talking about the purpose being maximizing the wealth of nations. So, today a lot of the problems that we see are an outcome of exploiting beyond a fair mean, which in turn creates an imbalance. Think of climate change. Think of polluted air. Think of polluted water table. Our food cycle is completely compromised with preservatives, chemicals, additives. All of these problems are an outcome of this monster called maximizing the wealth of nations. Right? Whereas the other definition says Sukhasya moolam artha, that the fundamental foundation of happiness, Sukhasya moolam dharma, the foundation of sukha, happiness, contentment, bliss, comes from following one's dharma. Dharmasya moolam artha. In order to fulfill your dharma, you need resources, economic resources, other resources. And arthasya moolam rajyam. In order to manage, create, and further allocate those resources, you need rajya, which in those times were kingdoms. In today's world, these are corporations. So thereby the objective of even having an organization is to help, one, your consumer, your customer, two, your people who work with you, and everybody that you touch, is to eventually further their journey of helping them follow their dharma so they can eventually go and lead a happy, healthy, and a prosperous life. So that entire paradigm of why Jiva or why organization, why are we even running this organization, why should anyone even come and work for the organization, apart from obviously it needs to meet their professional needs, their monetary needs, that I'm sure is sort of basic. It has to happen, because if I'm not happy with what I am being paid for the value I'm creating, I will not be associated with the organization anymore. But I see it as basic, because once your Maslow's hierarchy, right, your survival and your comforts are taken care of, you want to see why are you doing what you're doing, and is it actually creating a positive change or not. So our why and that intent is something which is very, very strongly ingrained into the very DNA of the organization. The way we do it is we don't really communicate it, because we believe that value is not something that you put up on the wall. Value is something that you live and you deliver. And when a time to take a certain decision comes, you demonstrate those values in the decisions you're taking and the stands you're taking. So I believe that people get exposed to the air in the organization, so to say, and they kind of pick up the value systems that we are trying to drive.
This is really incredible, because a couple of things. One, I think you use looks to answer your question is absolutely amazing, because I believe that the books that we had earlier still available. If we start reading them, we read a lot of Western books or American books as opposed to reading our own books, which I think has more meaningful lessons for us in context of Indian than any Western and American books. So awesome. One thing that you touched, and I would like to go and double down on that. You mentioned about the corporates, right? In previous word, Raju or kingdom, but today it is corporate, and very true. a corporate itself is a big or small kingdoms. um, if Jivagram or Jiva as a concept, one is that I know that is very popular in Delhi NCR where people are, reaching out to you. In fact, you have online services where a lot of people are using it. But corporates also wants their health and well-being function to focus on their employees, right? And they do a lot of things, right? They do yoga, Zumba. Right now, we're sitting in your yoga room right now. So yoga, Zumba, meditation, lot many things that they do, right? If I ask you that, what does Jiva has to offer for corporates to live a Vedic life that you envision of? And how can you guys make an impact to those corporate? What would you say?
Surely. So before I answer that question, I'll just make a small asterisk and a caveat, right? You said, how can we help them live a Vedic life? So we don't really have them live a Vedic life, because that could go on to mean to somebody that, you're going to make them renounce, or you're going to make them live a very frugal life. The idea is not for people to live a Vedic life, because probably ordinarily it is not possible in today's context. Yes, but the objective is that we understand the key frameworks of healthy, happy, long living through the lenses of what has been mentioned in our Ayurveda and yoga and associated sister branches. How do we help corporate do it? Now, you see, we work with corporate not just on disease management. Obviously, there are people working there. They are exposed to a lot of lifestyle challenges, dietary challenges, and so on and so forth. And because of which they develop different kinds of lifestyle, metabolic, degenerative disorders. One direct benefit is we are able to work with them in order to help people manage such problems, because, in a more, from a human lens, if a person is healthy, happy, and at their best, they will contribute more. They will be more proactive in the kind of contribution that they make. And I think increasingly also, corporates are changing their view towards human resource, not merely as just another resource which needs to be maximized, but from the lens of maximizing the human experience and the potential, right? I have seen I glanced through the magazine that you just published, and there was a survey on Gen Zs, right? And one of the things that Gen Zs they want authentic experiences. They want to work not just merely as a transaction to earn money, but they want to work even in areas that help them enhance their own life experience. So I think that's an interesting lens to look at, even from a corporate point of view, because everybody is battling with this question of how do we kind of, tackle with managing Gen Zs. So Ayurveda and yoga become great levers for the corporate to offer to them, and they see it as a great value add to their overall life experience. That's one. The second way in which we work with corporate is we design an entire Ayurveda and yoga based well-being program for their people, not just their employees, but also extended to their employees' families. Because we are social beings. We don't live, although the saying says that leave your personal life at work, but it doesn't really happen, right? If my daughter is running sick, I could be in a board presentation, but I will always have it at the back of my mind.
Correct.
If my wife has undergone a certain, anxious phase or a stressful phase, I will not be at ease at work.
Correct.
So thereby, it is as important to take care of the employees. It is equally important to extend that offering to their families. So we work in two areas. One is directly addressing any such pressing health concerns which are in the lifestyle, degenerative, and chronic category. And then two, also weaving together a specifically stitched, fabricated program for their employees and their families.
So I think this is really awesome, because we also believe that the work culture the work culture in the organization is not one thing, right? And health and well-being of the employees is one part of that itself. Because when you have focus, as you correctly said, right, when you focus on the health and well-being of your employees, and if you extend it to the family as well, and I think the work culture becomes in a way where people are more productive as opposed to
And
less.
also, what has happened is, you see, wellness within corporate earlier meant that we do an annual health checkup and we have some amount of health insurance coverage. That meant wellness, right? Barring obviously certain specific organizations where there are specialized occupational hazards and they need to be addressed. More progressive organizations are leaving that traditional view to employee wellness. There are many reasons to it. There are economic reasons to it. If I'm not correct me if I could be wrongly quoting the exact number, but $3 billion is what is the cost of employee sick leave in the world. I may be wrong with the exact number, but it's a large number, something of that sort. But progressive corporations are changing their stand on how they view employee wellness. So they're wanting to move beyond just these, kind of diagnostic way of addressing or an intervention way of addressing through insurance to more proactive and positive and preventative ways of taking care of people. So, it doesn't have to be broken. Why should I wait till something gets broken and then I fix it? I should act proactively. And I think COVID has played a great role to that extent in terms of making all of us, wake up and sort of realize that just popping a pill and taking a medicine when something is kind of ailing is not the way health will work. Health of an individual is an ecosystem. It has to be nurtured. It has to be taken care of, just like, your garden. You prune it, you cut the grass, you take care of the plants, you water them. It has to be nurtured on a daily basis. Similarly, health is something when you take care, it is easy, it is cost effective, it is mostly can be done at home. But if it gets broken, it is expensive. It has to rely on external expertise. So if we are smart, we will choose more preventive care.
Yeah, and there is a saying, MS, on that you put your health on risk to make a lot of money because you work so much hard, don't see whether it's day or night. And then when you make a lot of money, then you put that money to get your health back, right? So there's no point of doing this and earning so much that you put it on the cost of your health. And I'll tell you one thing that registered to my mind a lot when actually I switched from a very unhealthy work life to trying my best to go to a healthy one. One of my brother, he's into life insurances, and one day I was talking to him on some investments, and he mentioned to me, like, having conversation of what should be the term life insurance I should take, whether this amount or that amount. And one thing he said that really stuck to me like hard, right? And he said, Govind, I have seen, because he's into insurance, so people get hospitalized, so call him and say, hey, if you're hospitalized, come and get this thing cleared. So this is his day-to-day business. He said, I've seen people on the ventilator or ICUs willing to pay crores just to get 1 day life. Just 1 day life, they're willing to pay crores, but they don't get it. And I was like, wow, like we live life. We can do things today that can give us some extra days. And then I was envisioning, it's true actually. You look at those, and if you put yourself in those shoes and say, you are on ventilator, you don't want to die. Nobody wants to die. Literally, of course, the truth. Nobody wants to die. But like somebody will ask me, will you pay 1 crore to just get 24 hours? I will. I will pay 1 crore if I can get 24 hours. Because what will I do with this money now? So that's where I think people need to understand that you don't have to pay that 1 CR. What you have to do is you have to invest your time on every single day to do something powerful like this, then taking pills, then taking injections.
Oh, correct. So another thing that we've sort of crafted and we've arrived at is, there is this dichotomy between I have a certain number of years where I can maximize what I am earning, right? Because that's my window. Um, so I try and go full hog, right? And obviously, it's a competitive world. It's a very fast-paced world. Things change, context evolve, markets evolve, and you have to keep up with it. If you don't, you will sort of lag behind. And today, we are also, as a country, going through a phase where, as this economic sort of boom happens, we will have more and more opportunities come in, and more people wanting to aspire to do more and grow more. Sometimes Ayurveda is viewed as the opposite signs, which tells you, no, slow down. You cannot run so fast. You cannot abuse your body to that great of a degree. And thereby, it means I need to compromise on what I can achieve. I need to compromise on the speed at which I can run. I need to compromise on what I want to aspire and what I will get robbed of in terms of my health and my longevity and quality of my life in the pursuit of it. So we understand, and as an organization and also in thought, we never want people to compromise on what their vision and aspirations are. So we've crafted this very niche program meant for such people. We call them high performing individuals. So CXOs, CEOs, high performers, people at higher management, senior management, even people who are, say, athletes or surgeons, people in high performing, high stress, high requirement jobs, because they need to be operating up. Their uptime has to be 99.99%. Their alertness, their sharpness, because their decisions impact thousands of people.
Absolutely.
How do we ensure that when they are running as fast as they are, Ayurveda and yoga can kind of contribute and become this wrapper around them, so as to it can minimize the impact it has on their health and well-being. So we are not telling people that you need to aspire lower. We are not telling them slow down because you will not be able to cope up. We are telling them what they need to do in order to ensure that while they are ensuring that they're able to achieve what they want to achieve and what they aspire towards, Ayurveda and yoga will become the cushions around them, which will sort of dampen the effect that this has on their long-term health and longevity. So this is another niche offering with the corporate that we are currently piloting. And we want to make sure that that also becomes our contribution towards ensuring that we as a country, in this pursuit of becoming a global economic superpower, don't become an economic superpower that is sick, that is frail, and that is not enjoying the the health and happiness and longevity in the later part of people's lives. So that, I think, would be the difference between India becoming a global superpower and Vishwaguru. I think that's what.
No, I think I liked it a lot. I have so many questions coming to my mind, and I have to cut them short because if I continue, I think it's gonna take long. As this concept is so fascinating to me, like listening it, I'm feeling there are so many opportunities out there. In fact, the one that you spoke about, the high performing and especially the CXOs, right? And I can testimony that because so I'm not exercise fan, right? So we just started 7 to 8 months yoga. So we have a yoga trainer coming to home. It's very hard for me, MS, to start that. Honestly speaking, it takes a lot of courage. The one of the reason why we chose not to go to a place and do it on a day-to-day basis, because it has to be daily, and call somebody at the home, was because we said that if we call somebody home, we are obligated to do it, right? It really works. 8 months today, and we are doing it like every single day. Before the yoga and after 1 hour yoga, my whole energy completely changes. And I do stuff in the in the day that maybe reduces it, but after the yoga it really increases to a lot. And I could sense what you're talking about, that how it can help you to be a high performing. And I think this concept has lot of power. It should go scale, right? So I'll touch upon that little bit. You are a very young CEO right now, right? And this concept is something which is, I will not say unique, I will not say a lot of people are not doing it, but I would say it has a lot of potential. But I also know a lot of people in our connections does talk about Ayurveda a lot. They believe more on Ayurveda than any other thing. And my wife, she never takes any pills. She was like, just do the Ayurveda things first, then you go and take pills. And that mentality is growing a lot in people, that let's not take medicine until it's very, very important, that try to find Ayurveda, try to just make your work life in a better way. As a CEO, and I would say as a young CEO that has the responsibility to take this scale, how do you feel? What are you doing? And what will be your message to corporates who really wanted to experience what I'm experiencing right now here in Jivagra?
No, great. I think that's a multiple questions in one question, and I'll try my best to answer all of the questions in there. So first of all, you mentioned how do I see it, right? I'm going to remove Ayurveda and yoga from the picture for a moment and just zoom out and see what is happening in the world at the moment. So there is this movement from reactive healthcare to proactive healthcare, which means people are wanting to do fitness routines, do gyms, supplements, yoga, tai chi, movement, breath work, this work, that work, whatever. So there is a movement from reactive healthcare to preventative healthcare. There is also a shift from chemical based things to more natural, organic, herbal based things, not just in healthcare, even otherwise. You look at cosmetics, you look at food, you look at also healthcare. So there is that shift happening. There is also an interesting shift, at least right now, in this movement of back to the roots. You can even see it in geopolitics with respect to this whole, nationalism everywhere. Each country, taking up to nationalism or whatever. So this back to the roots. That where do we come from? Where do our traditions lie? And specifically within India, there is this renaissance of the Indian knowledge systems. So people are now waking up and realizing, just yesterday in Edinburgh, at the oldest surgical institute in the world, they unveiled Maharshi Sushrut's statue as father of surgery. So Maharshi Sushrut was one of the most renowned Ayurvedic Vaidyas and surgeons who wrote this book called Sushrut Samhita, which has documented 300 different kinds of surgeries and over 120 types of surgical instruments. So there is that renaissance of Indian knowledge systems and adoption of it. Ayurveda and yoga happen to be in the sweet spot of all these mega trends globally, and which is why you see such a revival and adoption and people wanting to consume more and more of Ayurveda and yoga. That is one. Secondly, I think these tailwinds are further helped by a government of the day which is extremely proactive and talks of Ayurveda and yoga being global, being viewed as global practices and not just something that's limited to India. And a lot of work is happening in that direction. So I believe this is not a trend, this is not a fad, this is not a short-term wave. This is a very long-term defining wave for Ayurveda and yoga. However, having said that, what would we do? When such a thing happens, there is a lot of misappropriation also happens. So in Ayurveda, if you see today, there are all sorts of people jumping into Ayurveda. A wafer with 0.5% of ashwagandha becomes Ayurveda biscuits, right? Today you take chocolate and you add some amount of Ayurvedic herb in it, that becomes Ayurvedic chocolate. Then there are people who are claiming to treat cancer in 7 days and reverse diabetes in 72 hours. So there is all sorts of kind of bad, good, ugly voices happening within Ayurveda. So one of the biggest challenges and sort of responsibilities that we kind of foresee on ourselves is to ensure we are holding that voice of authentic, credible, scientific, rational driven Ayurveda, which is rooted in this science based methodology and thinking, and not just merely thump beating your chest and saying whatever small bigs things or nuskhas that you're able to think of. So one of the real challenges moving forward with Ayurveda and Ayurveda is going to be to tell people to choose the right Ayurveda. There is a lot of Ayurveda in the market at the moment, right? You will want to find one, you'll get 10. But what is the right Ayurveda? The credible Ayurveda, the authentic Ayurveda? Because unfortunately, in absence of that, people will get exposed to something which is not entirely correct and may result in the wrong experiences. And then they sort of abandon the entire ship of Ayurveda and not any specific product or an individual or an organization. So I think one of the larger sort of landscapes or waters to navigate is going to be help people choose the right form of Ayurveda. And Jiva is doing a lot of work in that direction in terms of our treatment. We've created data-driven protocols. We publish outcomes data to our patients for disease-specific areas. So what kind of outcomes are we seeing? We stay away from making any claims which are not based in the data of patients that we've sort of experienced on our own or which is backed by a valid study of data. Fourth, our doctors will never claim something which is false, misleading, or not rooted in their practice information. So I think, sometimes it is difficult because when you're operating in an environment where, the order of the day right now is that you will scream loudest from the top of the mountain and, 10 people will take notice. Everybody's on social media got the license of being an Ayurveda expert or an Ayurveda Acharya. You add Acharya in front of your name and suddenly you've become credible to talk about Ayurveda and yoga and advising people. When that is the order of the day, it takes a lot of courage to hold the fort, stand, take a long-term view in the interest of people and say that, this is the right thing to do. And no matter what, we will hold the fort for Ayurveda. So I am very optimistic. I am very, very upbeat about the future of Ayurveda and yoga in the country. People are extremely open, receptive, wanting to take up Ayurveda and yoga.
Awesome. And I think what I could sense is that you already got your ikigai and you are on it, and you'll make sure that Ayurveda goes to as much as possible where it should be. So thank you very much, MS, for being on our podcast. As I said, that there's so many thousands of questions that I can still talk on the health and Ayurveda with you.
We'll do part 2, don't worry.
So we'll keep it for some other day.